Hey everyone, and welcome back. Lately my social media has been like completely blown up with these Pi Network price predictions, like crazy numbers,
Yeah.
300, 3,000,
Yeah.
300,000. I even saw somebody say it's going to hit $1 million.
Wow.
It's got that early Bitcoin buzz, right? Stanford geniuses mining from your phone.
Yeah.
But is it actually going to pan out? Well, our viewers have sent in tons of questions, doubts, articles. They even sent us Pi's own white paper. Smart move, going straight to the source, guys. So, to help us break it all down, we've got expert Nancy here.
Hi. Yeah.
Nancy, I gotta ask, revolution or just another crypto craze?
Well, you know what I think is so interesting about Pi is they're really tapping into this idea of nostalgia, right? Remember back in the day when Bitcoin first came out, anybody could mine it on their computer at home. And so Pi is really branding themselves as a return to that accessibility. Anybody
Yeah.
can mine it right from their phone. And it really plays on that desire we all have,
Yeah.
We want to be early adopters.
Right. And let's be honest, who wouldn't want a second chance at that? But
Yeah.
I'm seeing Mine Pi on your phone everywhere I look. Is it really that easy? And what about Bitcoin being so valuable because it's limited? How can this be the next Bitcoin if everyone and their grandma is mining it?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that, actually? I want to hear from you guys. Let us know in the comments. Are you hopeful? Are you skeptical? Or are you just curious? Let us know where you're tuning in from. We're all learning together here.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's why I think it's so important to actually understand what the technology is. They use a lot of jargon, Stellar consensus protocol, trust graphs.
Okay, hold on. Stellar Consensus Protocol,
Oh,
trust
yeah.
graphs. That sounds like it's straight out of Star Trek.
Right.
Break it down for us, Nancy. What are we really talking about here?
Okay, so basically, instead of having these massive mining farms that use tons of energy, imagine if you had this network of users and they vouch for each other. They say, yeah, this person's trustworthy. So you've got this digital web of trust, kind of like if you had your friends guaranteeing your transactions for you. That's basically trust graphs in a nutshell. And then stellar consensus. It's just a fancy way of saying they have this specific set of rules to make sure that everyone agrees on which transactions are actually legit.
So it's like a digital version of my word is my bond.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting, but can that really replace the security of something like Bitcoin's proof of work system?
Right, and that is the million-dollar question. It's
Yeah.
definitely a new approach, but
Right.
whether it's actually going to be as secure or scalable as, some of these other systems is yet to be seen. And that's what I think is so interesting. It's like
Yeah.
we're getting into this new territory.
Because even if this whole trust graph thing actually works, what's stopping someone from just creating a bunch of fake accounts and mining themselves rich? I'm already seeing posts about people saying they have millions of Pi.
Right, and I think that's a really important point and something that, with any new technology, especially in the crypto space, is so crucial. And Pi actually addresses this in their white paper. They are really emphasizing KYC, know your customer.
KYC. Now that is unusual. Most of these crypto projects, it's all about anonymity. What's the rationale behind their approach?
Well, for one thing, they're really focused on Pi being used for everyday transactions, right? So let's say you're a business and you're accepting Pi. You want to make sure it's coming from a real person, not just some bot farm. So KYC helps build that trust. Kind of like, back in the day when e-commerce first started, everyone was nervous about putting their credit card online. It wasn't until we had those systems to verify people and prevent fraud that people felt more comfortable.
Right, building that trust. But isn't that kind of a double-edged sword? Some people, they might be wary about handing over all this personal info, even if it means potentially missing out on the next Bitcoin?
Absolutely. And that's going to be so interesting to see how that plays out. They do have this massive community. But how many of those people are actually willing to go through those steps? And how do you balance that with attracting new users who might be hesitant?
It's a tough line to walk.
Yeah.
And speaking of navigating some tricky terrain, we got to talk about this mainnet launch. We're seeing dates, we're seeing price predictions that are, frankly, out of this world. Nancy, break it down for us. What's the reality here? What can people actually expect?
Yeah, so the main launch is where it's at, right? That's where it goes from this kind of enclosed test to a live decentralized blockchain. And they're actually doing this interesting thing where they're doing it in two phases.
Two phases. Now, there's a phrase you don't hear every day.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
They're calling it the enclosed network period. So it's kind of like a soft launch. Technically, the mainnet is live, but there's like this firewall up. So it prevents any outside connections.
So no trading on exchanges yet.
Exactly. Exactly. Basically, it gives pioneers time to do that KYC, right?
Yeah.
And get their Pi onto the blockchain. And they can actually start using it within the Pi ecosystem.
Okay, Pi ecosystem. Paint us a picture. We talked about buying our virtual lattes with Pi.
Not quite virtual lattes, but you're on the right track. They've already got this browser with apps. They've got their own social media platform, Fireside Forum. They even have a barter marketplace in the works. So they're really going all in on making it so Pi actually has some utility before it even hits the open market.
Wow, they really are going for it, huh? It's like they're building the plane while they're flying it.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive, kind of terrifying at the same time. But if people can't cash out, what's the incentive to actually use Pi for any of this stuff?
Well, that's where their new mining mechanism comes in. So it's not just about clicking a button on your phone anymore. They've added these rewards for locking up your Pi, for using the apps, even for running nodes on the network. So they're trying to incentivize participation, build a real economy around Pi.
Nodes. So like setting up a server in my basement.
Not quite that intense, but yeah. They are encouraging those more tech-savvy pioneers to get involved, help decentralize the network, and of course, they're rewarding those efforts.
I gotta admit, that's pretty smart. Building up the infrastructure, getting people invested.
Right.
It almost creates its own kind of value,
Yeah.
right? It's like, remember those old online games where people were trading virtual items for real money? Like, it was this whole underground economy.
That's a great analogy. It's that same idea, right? It's that community-driven value. And they've got millions of people who are active on the network every single day, so it's working. Now, will that translate to real-world value once the open network period begins? That's the big question mark.
Yeah, right, because that's when they take the firewall down and Pi can finally, play with the other kids. Any idea when that's happening? Because everyone's on the edge of their seats here.
They've thrown around a few dates: Pi Day 2022, Pi 2 Day 2022, maybe even later. Really depends on how smoothly things go with the KYC and the ecosystem development. Which honestly, after some of the launches we've seen in the crypto space, might not be a bad thing.
Better to be cautious, right?
It's definitely a measure twice, cut once
Right.
situation. But even with a cautious approach, there's no guarantees here, right?
Yeah.
The value of any cryptocurrency, it all comes down to supply and demand. And right now, demand for Pi, well, it seems like it's mostly driven by hype and speculation.
100%.
Everyone's hoping this is going to be the next Bitcoin, but what are the actual factors
Yeah.
that could affect its long-term value? So first and foremost, the size of their active KYC verified community is going to be huge. They're claiming millions, but how many of those people are actually going to use Pi day to day? Then you've got the strength of their ecosystem, right? Are the apps they're building actually useful? Are they things people will pay for?
So it's not just about the tech, it's about the community and what they do with it. It's like if you're building a new city, you need the roads, the infrastructure, but you also need people to live there, work there. You need them to create a thriving economy. And that takes time.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what makes Pi so interesting to watch, because it's not just another cryptocurrency. It's an experiment in building a decentralized economy from scratch.
Yeah.
And speaking of experiments, if you're finding this deep dive as fascinating as we are, hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends. We're breaking down all the latest trends in crypto, so you don't have to. And hey, who knows? Maybe one day we'll be looking back on the early days of Pi, just like we do with Bitcoin now.
Yeah.
And remember, everyone, we are not giving financial advice here. Do your own research, okay? Be skeptical, especially of those crazy price predictions. Approach Pi, or any cryptocurrency really, with a healthy dose of caution.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now, before we wrap up, there's one more aspect of Pi we need to talk about, and it might just be their most powerful tool.
You're talking about their community, right?
Right.
I mean, they are huge. They're passionate about Pi. They're really out there, like, promoting it everywhere.
It's kind of amazing, right? Referral codes, those online forums. I even saw somebody offering to pay for their pizza with Pi the other day. It's like this whole movement. So how much of an advantage do you think that is for Pi, and could it backfire at all?
Oh, it's a double-edged sword for sure. I mean, on the one hand, they're driving adoption. They're spreading awareness. They're even developing apps, right?
Right.
Which is huge, especially in these early stages. It's like having this volunteer marketing and development army.
Right. There's
Right.
always a boost.
But we got to remember that a lot of this enthusiasm is based on speculation. These are people who are hoping to get rich quick, just like with any other crypto boom. And when those expectations aren't met, well,
things can get a little messy.
it doesn't always end well.
Yeah, we've seen that happen before.
Exactly.
The hype fades away, people get disillusioned, start dumping their coins,
Yeah.
and it could all come crashing down.
Exactly. So Pi's biggest strength, that community, could also be their downfall. Can they manage those expectations? Can they actually deliver on what they're promising and build something sustainable? That's the real question.
This is a high-stakes game, for sure. So, Nancy, after this deep dive, where do you stand? Revolution or just another flash in the pan?
I think it's still too early to say. They've got some really cool ideas, a passionate community,
Yeah.
and they've got big plans. But there are definitely challenges ahead. Can they actually scale this technology? Can they navigate all the regulations? And ultimately, can they prove that Pi has real value beyond all the hype?
Yeah, I feel like we've only just scratched the surface here today. So much to think about, so much to see unfold, but that's what makes it so exciting.
Exactly.
We're watching this whole new economic experiment unfold in real time.
In real time.
It's exciting, it's a little unpredictable, and it's definitely something to keep our eyes on.
Definitely.
So it's clear Pi is more than just your average crypto project. It's this huge experiment with big hopes and some very real challenges. Will they pull it off? That's up to you to decide. As you learn more about Pi and the future of cryptocurrency, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this deep dive with anyone who wants to learn more. My name is Tony, and this is Basic Knowledge. Till my next video, keep mining.